have certainly made it to come in with music. That's the way to go. And lots of text behind my name. It's a real pleasure to be back in Tartu and to share with you this provocation of the bigger picture. How do we think of European capitals of culture? What is the big picture? Let's see if this works in the right way. Whoops, how am I doing it? We certainly, yeah. Is this having the battery that it requires? Because we are on a timer. It doesn't seem to work. Maybe someone can help me check this. So yes, I was here with you at the very start of the journey as the president of the selection panel. And I have been over 26 years, yes? What is happening? Here I am, in all the glory, back in the day, announcing Tartu as the next European Capital of Culture for 2024. I have been also doing a lot of assessment of capitals of cultures and Olympic Games or other large-scale events. So certainly I have accumulated a lot of data over 26, 27 years and a lot of stories. But what interests me and what I think is very relevant for you is actually the job is not done. The job is starting. Once you have had the platform, what matters is what happens next. And to understand your success, what was really valuable, no? Was it the dream? Was it what you dreamed for? You're going to need 5, 10, 20, it's the rest of your lifetime that will help you understand that. I have been lucky enough to get the opportunity to follow a range of amazing cities through their journey. I started looking at the legacy of Glasgow. That was the very first city to argue that a European Capital of Culture should not just be an award for being an established cultural center in Europe, but a catalyst for transformation. And to do that from the kind of mid-80s, 1990, until the 10 to 20 years later. With Liverpool, it's the same story. I started working with them in 2005. They hosted their title in 2008. And some of the most amazing effects have been later, with Eurovision, hosting Eurovision for the Ukraine in Liverpool. Amazing. And Barcelona, my own home city. What happened since the mid-1990s, how it helped change perceptions of Spain as more than beaches and sangria, no? As centers of urban, sophisticated, and forward-thinking culture with a lot of diversity. So this longitudinal take is a very important part of what it takes to understand whether your dreams are coming true. Here I have myself with an image that I like very much, the cat that always manages to fall on its feet. And obviously what you projected with the notion of the art of survival. So what I want to share with you is a response to 3 questions I was asked. And these tensions, which is the notion of change, no? What do we mean by change? Measures and meaning, data and transformation. And I will finish with that big thinking about the bigger picture. Go beyond very narrow visions. So if we think about mega projects and change, there is this question, I don't know how easy it is to read with the color changes. The question was, what kinds of change can mega events like a European Capital of Culture actually generate? And this is an area I have explored in depth in the United Kingdom. I am the Associate Director as well of the Center for Cultural Value. And we have been debating change and evaluation. When you think of change, what you are thinking largely is impact. But to understand your impact and your capacity for transformation, you first need to understand the processes that lead there. And questions like this, the will of change, do matter. I'm always very insistent with teams when you put together a big application, you have your artistic vision, you have your great ideas, also have a moment to reflect about the mechanisms, the frameworks. I'm very much in favor of modeling, and that you interrogate very carefully your keywords, your aspirations. When we talk about impact and change, this is strictly related to your goals and your aspirations. You need to understand what success looks like for you. And then you determine what it takes to get there. And it takes several steps. that are not just linear, they are also circular because they all retrofeed each other. So you need to be very clear, your point of departure, that famous term, baseline. What is your baseline? No, what is it? Where are you and where would you like to be next? What are your resources, your investment? No? What kind of money do you have? What kind of people? What kind of knowledge? Then what is your program, the activities you plan to deliver, the outputs, what this produces, and then what difference it makes before you then understand your impact. So this is a very useful framework that helps you understand how an intervention might lead to change. It's not just magic, it's the result of many different interrelated factors. And often when we talk about change, we end up with these areas. I like tagging them and organizing them into themes. Obviously, as a researcher and academic, we like to have our categories. In the end, a lot of it is interchangeable, but it's interesting, we have heard from the mayor just before, how often we try to translate those impacts into numbers. Yes, if we want more of something, we want growth. So our economic transformation is about more investment or more visitors. Our social transformation is about more engagements, more diversity. Our urban changes, maybe it's about more infrastructure, public space. Culturally, is it just about having many more shows, many more artists? Very important, the governance as well, whether it's about just having more strategy, more evaluation programs. This is obviously all relevant. It's not the whole. And you need to be able to combine it with, again, frameworks and narrative. Why are you asking those questions? Why are these the measures you're choosing? Do they really help you respond to the original goal? So let's get into that next question. Is when you're talking about a cultural intervention, how do you lead to something that helps you reconnect to that original dream? We have many indicators. And that list is something that is very established, and many methodologies, many research frameworks by now. But we have a problem, that there is often a clash between the artistic, inspirational, poetic vision and the types of evaluation teams that are ended up with very narrow measures and with a way of operating that at times is removed. It doesn't really correspond very well to the artistic. So you might end up with a whole number, a mountain of numbers that might be useful for a few headlines, but then a whole artistic practice whose real value has been left behind or not captured. We need to overcome that, and we need to then be able to go a bit further in our understanding of what value is. So let me remind you why you end up with so many indicators and measures that seem so dry, at times limiting for you. Well, the issue is that you have a vision that is inspiring, but you will have pressures to be accountable and transparent in your process. So you need to square the circle. You need to get there. Do not allow just the circle to be here and the square there. Your evaluators doing their best, struggling to get the data. I'm very keen to hear the presentation following me. And then your amazing, inspiring artists just being a bit tired of being asked questions and narrow down their big ideas. The European Commission, the panel I represented when we chose you and when we had to do monitoring, had a couple of questions. In terms of is this the ECoC that we dream of? You have your answer, Tartu, but the EU also has a dream. And the dream is an initiative that responds to these two key goals. It's about an opportunity to celebrate the diversity, but also the commonalities of people across Europe, of getting people to feel a belonging to this common European project, and obviously also to demonstrate that culture can transform cities. But they transform it in this. And this is maybe artistically not very inspiring, is it? I have put a few colors, but those of you that have worked on bid books know this table with the different general goals, specific objectives and sub-objectives. There is a task for all of you when you define your visions to get to the core. Extract. What are the keywords? What are the essence? What is the essence of all of these questions? How can this inspire your artists, your visionaries, your communities and your citizens? Keep playing with that. You can never leave it alone. And then how that then translates into something that will convince Europe, will convince also your local population. So for Tartu, I remember the image that you used to start with your final bid book. A way of presenting your vision was this: Southern Estonian woman in traditional gear in this classic cart with her MacBook Pro, trying to make sense and solving problems, not the art of survival. How do you adapt? How you bring your heritage, your identity, but also your visions into the future. And these were your original keywords. I'm trying to see today how many of them we will see. What has happened from your opening day, this ecology before economy, you know, the forward to your roots, the small cities that can inspire the rest of Europe. These were your great ideas. But you translated into something that felt quite hard to digest. These were your list of indicators. We had quite a few pages. The connection with the vision was not that clear or that easy to see. So that's where the magic comes. How have your researchers squared that circle? So we have had a lot of developments, and I think this is particularly in the last 15 years. I mean, the ECoC has 40 years, but especially in the last 10, 15, I think evaluation is starting to be rediscovered as an empowering tool, something for learning. It's not just an obligation. We are getting very interesting new measures and indexes. No? How do you measure happiness, curiosity, cultural climate? I wonder again, in the case of Tartu, what will it be? No? So whether you measure survival, what is it to survive? So it is possible to gather data, to do this rigorously, but also inspire and be transformative. And for that, you need to make sure that beyond this, I mean, all of these numbers that I have shown, and I think someone eliminated one of my previous slides, which was a bit of a summary of this. Many numbers. I mean, these are some of the numbers and visualizations I have played with over the last 26 years. How do you transform that into stories that also matter, but without reinventing the wheel? So I'm going to finish with a few images and examples of really powerful stories, cities that have managed to get what they dreamed for when they hosted a large-scale event, and did so in a way that has become iconic, that is easy to connect to emotionally, but is also backed up by the evidence. So again, an image like this, I don't know how many of you can recognize. Where is this? And when this image was created. So this is an image from 1992, and is the diving board, Olympic diving board in Barcelona, that had as a dream, obviously using an Olympics to reconnect with the sea, reopen itself with the sea, and reopen also with the rest of the world, and demonstrate that Spain is also a contemporary, advanced thinking country with diversity, Catalan identity, and so on. And they did this by putting the sport completely connecting the city, making the city the protagonist of the sporting competition. No? The Sagrada Familia, photographed by all the sporting journalists. But a lot of data is behind this image. Liverpool has also been doing this since the 1980s and managed to do this other transformation. An Albert Dock covered in concrete and mud, a no-go area, becoming now, again, a really iconic space. No? This was during the Eurovision edition, bringing the Earth to the center of a really spectacular site. Again, it didn't happen just by presenting great slogans and having a wonderful artistic direction. It happened by having a very thorough research program behind it that helped decision makers understand what works, what doesn't, what connects with your communities, what gets understood by your broader stakeholders nationally and internationally. So to conclude, let's go back to the original question. This big picture that you need going forwards needs to build on the power of your evidence. So never dismiss that. You know, those boring numbers, you need them, although you also can have a lot of fascinating qualitative measures. Do your decks of indicators. Spend time understanding your wheel of change, you know, how you compare, again, your investments your outputs, your outcomes, interrogate your sources, be clear about the questions you ask and your interpretations, and then have time for the storytelling. So make sure those numbers are not left alone. Do it. Combine the stories with the data. The cities that really manage to convince and inspire are those that have both. Provide the right lens, so help us interpret it. Help us know in which case 3 is a huge number, and in which case 2 million is nothing. And make sure you define value. So I will leave it here. You have 30 years of ECoC data and stories there. If you click, there is LinkedIn and lots of archival material. And also, make sure you keep your information safe. Make it accessible. Don't make it disappear. And continue events like this, because they are the future. Thank you.
Please stay here.
I sit.
So, thank you, Beatriz. Please stay here for another moment. So thank you very much, first of all. And just one really quick question.
Yes.
Since probably most people would be hard-pressed to mention or know what this year's Culture Capital of Europe is or what next year's will be. But of course, here on the ground, it's a very important time. So what do you think, how did Tartu stand out in terms of perspective from the rest of Europe? And in what way does Tartu 2024 stand out from the EU perspective?
Well, what Tartu had was a very clean and clear proposition, because your approach was to go with a line that anyone could use. I mean, the art of survival is something that applies in any context. And at times it's tricky, not to say, well, how much could you do that is only Tartu? Or how much do you go with a universal question and say, yes, we will do it? You were very clear, and it was quite straightforward. I remember during the times of monitoring and so on, with you, we always felt in safe hands. It was a time very complex. Obviously, we had COVID, and at times you have very aspirational proposals that are really risky. And of course, for Europe, it's important to take risks. But with Tartu, it didn't feel that way. And this is also important. Sometimes you need to have a safe pair of hands. Obviously, for you, you had the challenges in terms of size, in terms of who knows about you. And what you were able to do is then be very playful with your communication strategy. So you started a reference and something that you have become really inspirational. Beyond the theme is how you play. Again, from something as simple as your color scheme, the Tartu colors. I do believe in that very much. Mexico with the Olympics did that, and Barcelona. So I do believe very much in typography and color schemes. So I don't think it's a minor achievement. How you did that was very helpful. Because you made it very easy through social media and other platforms to engage, and also to get other international, very easy to understand, oh, this is a Tartu take. So that's helpful. Then we get into the bigger questions, and that's what I'm really curious about, the areas that were a bit difficult in this thing of forwards into the roots, or the ecology and economics. That issue is a complex one. And it's where I wonder how far you go. It's interesting when you host events like this, how insistent you are on ensuring that you are consistent with that. Oulu is sharing that ambition with the culture, climate change. So I will see whether actually now in terms of the numbers, what can you demonstrate that you have done? But on the symbolic front, you have managed that. So you have got the conversation going. And something that seems simple but is not to be dismissed, accessibility is very accessible. It's very easy to understand what you are saying. Obviously, then is the broader discussion around Estonia, the approach in Estonia and the capacity for design, and again, to be clean. So today, talking with your colleagues today and yesterday, there was the issue of how much noise, whether you are trying to put too much information. You obviously have that gift of being able to simplify. For me, obviously, as an academic and researcher, it's like, okay, what is behind that? So let's make sure you also have the very heavyweight complexity. But yes, from the outside, you make it look easy. And the European Union needed that too.
Well, thank you very much, Beatriz.
Thank you. Thank you.